Welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, what's going on?
And Derek, we are back for round 3 downtown, which we're excited for. But this brand has by far the most comments, mainly because of the name. So I think it makes sense because it's been a long while since we've been here. There's been serious modifications to the establishment, so that's exciting. We can feature those as best as we can. But for those that are new, because our audience has grown since round 2, do you want to introduce yourself, title, where we are, and the name of the establishment?
Sure, yeah. So Frank Weber, Buffalo Distilling Company. We're in Larkinville, 860 Seneca Street. The brand is One Foot Cock, and it's been a long journey to get here. You guys talk about how things have changed a little bit since the last time you've been in here, and that is, we talked about this earlier. The only thing constant is change, and I think, that's reflective in the whiskey world. You want that change in the barrel. And for us, not only is the change in the barrel happening, but also at the establishment. We started out over 10 years ago now. This summer will be our 11th year as a business. We started in a little barn out in Wyoming County, in a little moonshine shack, and it totally, it's still surreal. Like we come in, here and we see this building that we now own. We bought it from the Larkin Group a couple years ago, a place that we were leasing. And, when we first looked at this building, I remember thinking to myself, my partner, so I'm like, wow, this will never be ours. We'll never be able to afford this place. But we've been in here for a little over 6 years now, and about 4 or 5 years out at the barn. So it's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you guys are taking the time to hang out and try the products, because just like anything, I like to tell this story that when we first started, it was totally a hobby. It was just something that we were screwing around with. We're taking, we had this homemade still that was out in my barn that was passed down from a legit moonshiner. This guy, Cowboy Bob, we talk about him. He's in the story. He's a real dude. He's getting up there. He actually just had we still stay in contact with him, but he had a pretty bad accident. He had a tree fall on him. He was cutting down a tree, and he was pulling it with his tractor, and it fell on him and crushed him on his tractor. But he's still alive. And someday soon we got to get down there. He's in near Asheville, North Carolina right now. But anyways, we started out in the barn as a hobby, and obviously, we were very green to the craft, and it was something that it took us a while to really hone in, but we've gotten to a cross point here where, I love sitting down and showcasing the spirits, and I still, I go out and I do tastings, and when you first start, you can read people's reactions, and you're like, oh, that's good, and now it's like, oh, yeah, it's good, it's sweet. And, when I'm at events that we can sell at, people walk away with a bottle, and that really, means a lot, proves, it kind of puts a little faith into what we're doing. So it's been a long journey, and we kind of have a pretty cool lineup now. But, just to reiterate, and not to, you guys can interject at any point here, but, again, we started in this barn out in Wyoming County, in Bennington to be specific. That's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. Went to Attica High School, kind of country, and most of the area is farming, and what distilling mainly, it's an agricultural process.
Yeah, for sure.
You're bringing in grains from farms, so we get to work with farmers around here, and we're trying to get some. We've tried in the past to have some varietals of corn grown. The issue with growing specific varietals that aren't like GMO is they don't do as well, as a formulated corn. So we really, we've used some Bloody Butcher, some Seneca Red Stalker in the past, but it's a little fickle. But I'm kind of going off the rails here a little bit, but working with the farms, working with guys that are local, we work with guys that we have a specific guy that we use for corn. We have a specific guy that we use for wheat, and then we have a specific guy that we use for barley and malted barley. And I don't know if you guys have ever talked to Bob Johnson, but he would be a fascinating interview.
Oh yeah,
he's a plant physiologist. He teaches basically all about agriculture and plants, and he has his own craft malting operation up in Niagara.
Sweet.
So Niagara Craft Malt. He's pretty well revered. So we're, coming from the country. I'm still in touch with the country people that are making the stuff, and it's going, it's coming here and then it's going back in the form of spent grains. So it's a full circle. And then being able to kind of plug into the city and do things in the community and be a part of the growth in Buffalo. I mean, we were on a pretty good clip there for a little while, and then kind of got batted down for a little bit with the I dare not say the words over the last couple of years, but it kind of, we survived.
Thank God
that we kept the production going. We made hand sanitizer, and then we had off-premise sales. We were able to still close our bar, but sell alcohol to the liquor stores.
Sure.
So, that kind of, that was a big help.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we've talked about this before. This is Buffalo Distilling's third time on the show. And we first came here, 3.5 years ago at this point?
Right.
And I don't want to say you guys were new back then because you weren't, but I feel like the craft distilling scene in Buffalo is new, right? Like there wasn't everything blowing up at the time. So coming in then and then now seeing where you guys are, did you take we'll say it, but the COVID time, did you take that as a opportunity to change course a little bit? Or did you just kind of grow at the same pace since then?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did. We took the time, the opportunity to do some things to the bar, construction-wise, that we wouldn't have probably wanted to try and tackle if the bar was open. So, there's 2 floors above us that really needed some love, and it would have made a big mess down here. It did make a big mess. So we were able to close, make a big mess, and basically clean this place out and have it, have some usable space. Because upstairs was demoed, but it was never cleaned up. So we needed to and I also brought in a company that basically will blast a substrate like brick and get old paint off or dirt and grime. So we had them start on the 3rd floor, and they blasted the rafters, they blasted the walls, and we just worked our way down. And the last time you guys were in here, these walls were all painted. Not the front. The front was already blasted, but the back was not. And I don't love paint on brick.
Sure.
It's unnatural.
Right, exactly.
So,
just let it be brick.
Yeah, and it adds to the vibe. So we took the time to kind of take some paint off the walls, and then we took there was a wall in the middle room that we took apart. So, and then kind of figure out our course in terms of how we wanted to start back up again, and then that part of that was doing craft cocktails. So
from a timing standpoint, you said you bought this building from the Larkin owners. When did that happen? Was that pre-pandemic that you did that?
That was during.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Wow,
during.
Good for you.
Yeah, that was during pandemic. Yeah. So
That had to have been in the works though prior to the
it
pandemic. right?
was, yeah. But it definitely stretched it out a little bit. That was quite a ball of wax. Getting through that.
Sounds like a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it was because you wanted to do more upstairs, right?
Yeah, and we were investing into the building, and we had a deal with the Larkin folks, but we were starting to put some capital into this place, and it's like, how much do we put in here if we're not going to own it? So, but the Larkin people set the people they bring down here, because they pretty much own the whole street, but they bring people down here and set them up for success. They don't want to bring people down here and not have them succeed. So they were pretty great, and it was just kind of really good timing from the get-go when we first came down here and met with them, and then to where we are now. So it's been good. And fortunately, so we have the main building, which is all brick, built in 1895. It was built as a carriage factory, and the integrity of the building has remained intact. Because the roof was always preserved. So, but I'll take you guys over there. But fortunately, they built a warehouse and that built onto it, and that was probably built in the 50s or 60s. Sure. But it served as a perfect place for our rick house and for our production. When we first moved in here, the room that we're sitting in was our rick house. We didn't have access, so the Larkin folks were still using that warehouse. So we were just leasing this part of the building, and then they gave us a little, they leased us a little space in there, and then eventually we took it over. But it's funny because we were doing bottling and labeling in this room. This room had barrels in it, and then so it's been an interesting progression. We just, again, starting small, coming from the barn, coming into here, having a bar space, but also having this middle room as like a production a production / rick house, and then all the distilling in the back, which, so now it's, we've pushed the production into the warehouse, and quite honestly, after this year, we're probably going to have to find some off-site space for barrels, because we're going to be at maximum capacity in there.
Wow. Do you feel that's a huge move? First, so cheers to that. But secondly, when you're looking for off-site space, do you want it within Buffalo due to the environment, or do you want it just somewhere within Western New York to see how it'll impact the barrels?
Great question. Definitely within Western New York, just for ease of getting
logistics.
to it. Logistical ease. But if the furthest I would take it is maybe out
back home in Bennington.
Back to the barn, baby.
Well, it can't. Yeah, technically, it can't be on any residential property. But I got some hookups with some folks out there that you definitely want here. It's not like Kentucky, where here we want a climate controlled space where we can ramp up the heat in the winter, and then in the summer let the heat do its thing. But people ask that question all the time. What about temperature fluctuation? So down in Kentucky, they want the rick houses to get hot. And then at night let it get cold. And they have hot summers down there too, and that humidity. And some of those rick houses, you'll go down there and they're painted black. Sure. So up high, I mean, you're getting some temperature. Here we've in the summer we keep the rick house at like 65. Sometimes I'll crank it up to 70. But fortunately, it's all insulated in there. So we're actually thinking about this year. We've talked about this, experimenting with taking a barrel and maybe putting a thermal probe in it and seeing how long it would take to get the barrel, say, up to like 80 or 90 degrees. 90 might be extreme, but higher temperatures, and then cut that heat for like a week or whatever and let it go back down. So I think Woodford does that. I think Woodford has rick houses where they're artificially jacking the heat up,
Sure.
getting it hot, and then crashing it.
If you have a secondary site, I mean, that's what you could use that for, right? Is like experimental bottle or
and,
barrel stuff?
Yeah, and we could do it. We could easily do it here, just
Sure.
because we lucked out with this warehouse that I'm talking about, our rick house. When we bought it, it was already spray foam. It had spray foamed insulation, which is super expensive
Sure.
to do, but it was already done. So, but yeah, I mean, we're at the rate we're producing, we'll be out of room by the end of this year. Not a big deal. At some point, we're gonna move through whiskey probably at the same rate that we're making it. So then we'll strike this balance.
Sure.
But you always want to. Well, it's kind of a funny thing. Right now, we want to make more than we're selling because we want to get that age on there.
Sure.
But at some point, you kind of want to sell more than you're making.
Right,
too.
yeah.
You want to get a return on your investment.
Sure. That's now it's clicking to me why I said that you guys were young when we first came here, because you had one SKU out there, but that's because your bottled and bond weren't ready yet. I mean, you were still 3 years old at that point.
Yeah.
So that makes much more sense now.
Yeah, and even though we were around for a little bit, we went through, we had, when we first put out our whiskey, like in 2012 or 13, whatever it was, 2013 maybe, we were using 10-gallon barrels, and it was 6 months old, and, it was,
Sure.
it was a, it was a boutique, it was,
It's a boutique.
it wasn't ready for prime time,
Sure.
of course. But we were screwing around. We were having fun, and it was, we didn't go out there to. The goal ultimately is to make the best whiskey in the world.
Sure.
To make the best. Why aim for anything better than the best? And when I say the best, I guess that's subjective, but I think that when we first started, it was more we were just having fun with it. We didn't know where this was going to
Sure.
go. We never really had like this grandiose plan for anything. So, but I had a guy tell me one time, a guy from Tuttletown, Ralph or Nenzo. I think his last name's Nenzo. He told me one time, I went down there and talked to him, and this is when we were kind of getting going, and he told me that whiskey was a religion, and I didn't know what that quite meant, but I do now.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many nuances to it. There's so much to learn, and you really have to put your faith into it, your love and time and devotion
Sure.
into it.
So since you were playing around with it, and we can pour something if you want to start drinking something, but since you were putting your time into trying to figure out tasting notes, did you have an ideal whiskey that you were aiming for to taste like? Woodford is my favorite taste. I kind of want to make something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Weller 12.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. Weller. Well, quite honestly, Weller and we do weeded bourbon, and I like Buffalo Trace a lot too. Quite honestly, the Sazerac portfolio is
Awesome.
it's undeniable.
Yeah.
And,
It's almost like annoyingly too well designed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
it's-
you're a beginner and you can still appreciate it. And then when you've been drinking for 30 years, you're like, I still got it.
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Damn.
It's so good. And it's funny because I boycotted Buffalo Trace for a really long time because, and I laugh about it now, but their lawyers kind of fucked with us when we were first getting going because of our name. But looking back, the people at Buffalo Trace had no idea.
Yeah.
These are lawyers that are on a retainer that just look for anything that has the word Buffalo in it. And so that's a whole another story. We were getting going, and we registered the name. You don't have to apply for a trademark on stuff, but we were like, yeah, well, you register your company name, and then if you want, you can trademark your brand name. and we went to trademark Buffalo Bourbon, foolishly.
The two biggest
You
key
know,
searches.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not going to show up anywhere. And so we immediately get letters from, the Buffalo Trace lawyers, and it's, they were advising us to direct our legal team to them, and it's like, okay, we're going to mess with these guys a little bit, just have fun, Little do they know we're three hillbillies in the barn.
Right.
You're talking to the legal team.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's funny that you say that because I don't know if you listen to the podcast that we both listen to, but Joe Rogan, Jack Carr from, he was just on there and he was talking about Jack's whiskey and how he just got a letter from Jack Daniels.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
I was listening to that and I was going, dude,
Yep. I've been there.
yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So we kind of went rounds with them a little bit, and we sought some legal advice, and they told us basically you can't have anything with the word Buffalo on it on your branding, but you can't preempt a city name, and the name of your business can be whatever you want. So so we put Buffalo Distilling, fairly prominently on there. And then they tried to push back. Unfortunately for us, I also had, at the time I was dating somebody who, her uncle was a lawyer in Washington that sent a letter on our behalf that seemed to shut them down, which was kind of cool. But so we were able to keep the name of the distillery, Buffalo Distilling, and they there was a little jostling there, but we were well within our legal rights.
Sure.
So, the name One Foot Cock came about because it legitimately, we needed to come up with a different brand name, but there was a decorative rooster on the barn that we started in that only had one leg. So, it's agricultural, it's funny, it's provocative, and people don't forget the name. And we try to be tasteful about it.
Sure.
We don't try to push it in, I could make a lot of puns right
Pause.
Pause.
Definitely open that door. I mean, it's not like it was super blatant in everyone's faces, but you guys did have a wonderful bumper sticker.
Oh, the honk.
Honk if you love my 1 foot cock, and it was basically just the logo. I mean, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So, it got people thinking at the red light.
It's playful, and a nod to, also, I gotta say, a nod to Casey Kelly, Casey Perez now. She's our graphic designer. And when I first met her, this was when we were kind of it was serendipitous. When I first met her, we were kind of kicking off the brand, and we were kicking off, this was around when we were getting the Buffalo Trace letters, and I met her, and she's, she looked at our first, backwoods napkin sketch printout of our label, and she's like, yeah, that's nice. I think I can help you with this. And, so she worked at a design studio. She's on her own now, but she worked at a real good design studio, White Bicycle. And she really did a good job at making the brand tasteful and still, it still has that provocative name, but it's tasteful. And we've since... we've changed the label a couple times, and the newest label is almost like Art Deco-y. It has that burst around it and some grains on there, and we're really happy with it. So,
honestly, the new label looks awesome, and I do like the new bottle too because you changed bottle types.
We
quite a
did.
bit. Yeah.
That was another thing too, because one of the bottles that we were using, it wasn't round, and when you don't use a round bottle, you can't put it on a label machine. So you're literally, I mean, the label machine is semi-hand operated.
Sure.
But the oblong bottle, you're slapping it on there by hand.
Yeah.
So going to the Arizona style was definitely, that's what they call that.
Oh, okay.
They call it an Arizona bottle. It is, helps with production.
And it fits better on a liquor store shelf. You can fit two in the place of one.
Exactly. Yeah, and in bars, which is key.
Yep.
There's I'm not going to name names, but there were brands, not in New York, not local, that had that issue with their bottles. And they realized that their production was there, they could keep up, but it wasn't fitting on the shelf. And they were focusing on like the bar scene before the liquor stores, and then vice versa, depending on the brand. And they were running into that issue where it wouldn't fit, so nobody would want it in massive markets. And they're like, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
And they were basically just forced to do the same thing. Like, we're just going to change our bottle.
Yeah.
And now they're fine. But it's those growing pains when you're trying to make that work, and you get that. It's kind of like when you're trying to buy a house. Well, I'm an adult, I can do it. And then you get slapped by the bank and they're just like, welcome to the real world. Like, you're not there yet, And it's like kind of the same thing when you're going through the ebbs and flows of running a business. You're just like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, okay, that's a new hurdle.
Yeah, there's a lot of slaps. Welcome to the real world slaps being in business, for sure. And it's funny, you guys talk about packaging. It's, it becomes a thing once you start, we're still a small distillery, but we crank out a fair amount, and it's just like painful to, especially at the bar here, you know the exact number of how much each package costs without any liquid in it, right? So when you're throwing away hundreds of bottles, right? Like, you're like, oh, I'm throwing away thousands of dollars.
Sure.
It's going right at, because you can only use it once.
Right.
It gets recycled, but it's still like, that label cost, 92 cents. And cap is, and then
Can
the
I
glass
just refill
is
it?
It's the same juice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just, and as you scale up, obviously your costs come down, but you really, to start getting price breaks on glass, you got to be at the 10,000. You got to buy like 10,000 bottles or 10,000 labels.
And then there's a shortage.
Yep.
And then you're just like, well, now what? Like, so can I still get a price break? They're like, no.
No. And the shipping prices, I mean, especially during the last, 2022 to 2020-ish, it was like the highest rates you've ever seen on shipping, bringing in glass. And then it was like literally playing a game to try and find glass bottles. If you talk to, pretty much anybody, trying to find glass bottles was very, like, you're calling the sales guy that called you, once, that, you're like, man, I'm with somebody else. And now you're calling the guy like, hey, how you doing? You remember me? You called on me once, and you got any of these glass bottles? And they're like, they just laugh at you.
Yeah.
But it seems like the glass has been flowing in. The other thing with glass too that kind of didn't help is there was Paramal glass, which is a big one in the United States. So all of our glass used to be made in the U.S. It was great. Get the boxes in. Every one of them had the flag on it, made in the USA. Cool. I want to support American jobs.
Sure.
Well, that company was bought out by a hedge fund. I think it was BlackRock actually bought it, and shut the plant down, moved it to India, and so now and it took a little while to transition. So now there was a little bit of a supply chain issue, obviously. Sure. So I mean, the glass is still great. It's a brand new plant. The glass is pristine, but that was part of the problem too, because they were a really big player.
Sure.
I think it would be cool someday, to get a custom bottle, maybe with a little rooster on it or something. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It's like these little things, so we're talking about packaging, again, like a little rooster on there in the glass. And then I would like to eventually switch to real cork.
Oh, okay.
I just love that sound.
Oh yeah.
When you're opening up that bottle and thump,
yep.
It's like it can't be replicated with synthetic.
It's true.
So again, it adds to the cost, but that eventually is something that I'm hoping that as we grow, I can just fine tune all these little things in. But I just love that. It's just something about it. It just gets me. It gets it just.
Whenever we pop that bottle, it's like, yes, I'm drinking whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting to your lineup here, again, we've been here before. We've done through some of these, but some of these are new. So can you talk us through kind of timeline on when these came out and right now, kind of what's your best seller?
Okay. Well, so we have five, 5 whiskeys. We have our bottled and bond Empire Rye. So that's minimum of 4 years. It's 100 proof. And that baby right there is, it's a really unique and fine whiskey. I will put that on the world stage in a second. It really is. It has, the reason it's unique is we use malted rye in the recipe.
Oh, okay.
And the malted rye we're getting is world class from Niagara Craft Malt. I mean, Bob Johnson really knows what he's doing. It's not cheap, but it gives it when you try it, it gives it a little stone fruit taste.
Oh,
and
okay.
this I mean, it's nothing like bourbon. There's nothing even close to reminiscent of bourbon in that bottle. But it has, when you try whiskey, and there's a lot of great whiskeys that taste the same, and they're great, they're good. But then every once in a while you'll try a whiskey that has a uniqueness to it, and I really in my heart feel like this has a uniqueness to it that's different.
Yeah.
And it's formidable. It's not certainly for everybody, but it definitely has a formidable, unique taste. And and I will say too, the more you drink of it, once it kind of opens up in your mouth, it sort of sweetens up a little bit too. So I mean, is that?
Well, yeah. Now I need it.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because you don't see a lot of places do that 100% rye with that 5% malted rye. Normally it's 95.5 just regular malted barley. So did you have a reference to go off of for that?
So it's not 100%.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No,
I gotcha.
it's geez, I think I should know this off the top of my head. I think we put about maybe 15% corn in there or something.
Oh, okay.
There's a little
Sure.
corn in there.
But you decided to use the malted rye.
But malted
Interesting.
rye. It's not all malted rye
Sure.
either. It's it's probably maybe like 30% or something like that. 100% malted rye would be really interesting, but it would be, and maybe we'll do that when we get to a point where I can charge $100 for a bottle or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you go, the malt prices, say you pay like, I don't know, say you pay like 15 or 20 cents, whatever, for a pound of corn. Malted rye, you could pay anywhere from $1.20. It's substantially more per pound. So,
Wow. That's great. I don't know that the prices were that
yeah.
different.
Well, it's more. You got to find.
Thank you.
You got to find barley. That barley doesn't really like to grow in New York, but places are getting better at it, and people are figuring out where it'll grow. So it's fickle. If it gets too wet towards the end of the season, it'll sprout in the field. So then you're done.
Yeah, sure.
So it likes real dry growing seasons, but you need a little bit, So you got to find it, then you got to get it harvested, get it to the maltster, and then he's going to malt it, and then it's just a lot. It's a lot of screwing around. He's got to make money too. On
Absolutely.
It too,
So from a money standpoint, how much is this per bottle? Do you know?
That the Empire Rye bottled and bond is $75 a bottle.
75.
Yeah. So it's not cheap, but we only put out about, I think this year we only put out 500 bottles. So it's super, super limited.
You can taste the grain.
That is very sweet for rye.
It's fresh.
I totally see what you're talking about, that stone fruit.
Do you see the stone fruit?
Yeah, totally see that. I like this one.
It's sweet, but it has like a dry finish.
I guess that's not going to be in the shot. There you go. Yeah. It's unique.
Damn, you took that like shot on. Both of you. Love that.
Yeah, man.
I can see what you're saying too, how it gets sweeter as it kind of sits there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit prickly and like rye heavy.
Yeah.
As it sits in your mouth, and then as it goes down, you get a lot of that like malted and corn sweetness on the back. This is good.
This is such a long ending note.
Yeah.
It lingers.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And
It's a super high hug.
it's weird because, like you said, it is. I tell people it's formidable. It's not because it's hot. It's got that rye spice. It's hot, but it still has that sweetness, and it's smooth, but like he said, it hits you.
Yeah.
So
makes your gums tingle a little bit. Love that.
Yeah,
You
I
rub it
like
on
that
your
though.
gums.
Like our preferred proof is over the 100 mark. Honestly, we love barrel strength. Everything.
yeah.
It's just so much to us. It's great because you're really getting the actual experience.
yeah,
To us.
Well, if I would have known that, I would have pulled some barrel strength stuff for you guys.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
We just, for us, like we love diving into every element that goes into it, and we recently fell in love with the whole grain train with where we spent time with Clonakilty and then seeing their operation and then the freshness of it, and then it brought everything so much more close to home now because you get like you guys, St. Lawrence, Mackenzie's, Black Button, and then a couple other distilleries locally are getting, their rye from like Batavia and like all these local farms, and you're like, damn, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And when you're using it and it's that close to home, you can literally just like with St. Lawrence, you can just pull it and then he's distilling it right there. And it's just like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But you can taste it, which is ideal.
Yeah, the guy in Batavia is he's doing some interesting, that maltster in Batavia, I forget the name of it, but he's doing some interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. He's reached out to, we've bought some stuff from him as well, but he does like chocolate malting and, it's endless.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a whole other industry.
It's pretty cool. Like, you guys mentioned a bunch of names throughout the state, and where the industry is going, it's not, with the beer industry, and this happens too, you have a lot of breweries that start up, and with beer, you can kind of be, you hope that you're good right out of the chute, With the distilling industry, there was a lot of guys like us that, were new to the game. Mm-hmm. And now because the main time, the time that this started bigger than it was 2012. So now we're 11 years into it, and you've seen some guys fall by the wayside, but I think the guys that have remained are putting out some interesting stuff. For instance, Mackenzie, or
That was a hope I did. I mean, Brian McKenzie's like a literal genius.
yeah.
Like,
So-
okay. Like,
Yeah.
what made you think of that? And he's like, well, honestly, it's not that complicated. It's fairly simple. Like, okay.
So an interesting thing about your rye is that it's classified as an Empire rye.
Yes, correct.
And it probably didn't change too much for you guys when the legislation came out for that, because you've always sourced from New York.
Right.
But can you talk a little bit about the classification of actually what Empire rye is?
Yeah, so it's got to be at least 75% derived from New York. I think it's got to be 75% rye too. Or is it got to be 51? It might have to only be 51% rye.
Sure. But 75% of the grain has to come from New
75,
York.
yeah.
Okay.
Has to be in a new charred oak barrel, just like bourbon. Now, the other interesting thing that they did was they lowered the barrel entry proof. So bourbon is 120 entry. Or is it 125? Jeez. I think it's 125. Oops. But the Empire rye has to be no higher than 115.
Oh, okay.
So you can't put it in the barrel at more than 115.
Have you ever had it over 115? Like, just for your own curiosity? I mean, dude, if I was on your side of the table, I 100% would have. But like, let me try this at like 126, 130.
I mean, we've definitely it's distilled out higher than that.
Right.
So I've tasted it
It's gotta be
before it
delicious.
goes in the barrel, but but putting it into the barrel, we knock it down.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely tasty. It's you know, it's all the things. It's sweet and peppery, and it's delicious.
And bringing it back to the original rounds that you guys were on 1 and 2, you were using the original distillation method from Buffalo Distilling, correct? If I remember correctly, it was the original process from
Back in the 1800s, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then has that been modified?
Or is that not accurate?
I don't.
We could be mischaracterizing it.
I might have been.
Well, so I mean, there was an original Buffalo Distilling.
Yeah.
And fascinating history there. And, oh, geez. Did I ever show you guys that bottle we have from them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was in the basement.
Yeah.
And it was inside of a glass case on this wall
Yeah.
before, and then you moved it because the whole wall got blown out because you guys are growing, which is fine. And then because that's what triggered the original antidote, and I believe it was shout out to Roy that was diving into that, where he goes, what we're trying to do is literally we're trying to pay homage to everything in the past. So we're trying to use that same method that they used to distill with, the modern age twist to it.
So I guess.
Maybe it was an amazing selling point.
Well, Roy never let facts get in the way of a good story. Sorry, Roy. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Roy. But no. So I think what he meant by that was, we are taking actual grains, fermenting it, distilling it, so doing it from scratch here, and I'll take you guys in the back and show.
Sure.
We just made a mash today. It's probably just getting ready to start doing its thing.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
We're in the attenuation period right now. So, but that's probably what he meant, doing things the old fashioned way in terms of bringing in the grain, grinding it up, throwing it in the mash tun. We do a pretty heavy aeration in there. So these are all the nuances that you learn about, your types of grain, your mash bill, how fine are you grinding the grain? Are you using a hammer mill? Or are you using a roller mill? What percentage to rye, what percentage to, all your different percentages. How long do you cook the grain? What temperature are you cooking it at? What temperature are you putting your small grains in at? What kind of yeast are you using? How long of an attenuation period are you going to have? How long are you going to let your mash go dry or leave it a little sweet? Are you going to let it go to zero, or are you going to have a little sweetness in there? What temperatures are you distilling at? Do you want a little reflux in there? Are you going to run it through,
filters?
We run it through an alembic still, so we do a strip. So we kind of have a hybrid still. Our main still where we do the strip, it's pot up through a column that we don't activate any of the plates. We don't activate any of the bubble caps. We let it shoot. We shoot it through hot and fast. We want to preserve as much of that flavor as possible. The only time we're going to activate the bubble caps is if we're going to make a neutral spirit. So run it through. So again, running through hot and fast, making our collections. When we run it through the alembic still, what are we cutting? We're going to cut our strip down to do a spirit run. Now, what I mean by the strip is what we've taken off the initial mash, the first mash. We strip it, we put it in a tote, we cut it down. Usually you're going to have, your strip's going to be around 100 proof average. We're going to put that in the still at say 60 proof. We're going to cut it down with filtered water. So our emerging proof isn't greater than 160. And that's one of the rules for making bourbon. You can't emerge higher than 160. So we know, but you can emerge lower. So you could start bring your strip down lower.
Sure.
So I hope I'm not losing you guys
too
much.
At all.
But, but these are the things that have taken us years to learn. Okay, so then you go through all that. Now your cuts. Well, it's not simply as easy as just like, oh, this tastes like shit, I'm going to throw it out. I want to, some of that stuff has got some flavor in there. Some of that stuff, you let it sit for a day, and it tastes completely different the next day.
Sure.
You have some
That's cool.
volatiles that are evaporating off that you want in there. Another thing that I found that I thought we were doing in the beginning was we were too careful with our cuts. There's acids in there. There's different kinds of alcohols in there that you want to interact inside your barrel.
Sure.
So our beginning barrels, a long time ago, it was too narrow of cuts. We were taking too much off the front and too much, cutting it off. You kind of want to run down into the tails a little bit because there's a lot of flavor in the
Sure.
tails. So these are all little things that you start to develop, but it takes time too,
Yeah.
because you throw stuff in a barrel, you don't know what until you crack it open. So
It's a scary process because you're
really
putting it in
is.
there, especially so 2 of your expressions are bottled in bond, which we talked about 4 years. Is that whole warehouse is bonded? So is that just
Yeah.
the barrels that you felt met that 4 year and that perfect taste? Because technically, if any of these were 4 years and you had it at 100 proof, they could be bottled in bond, right?
Yeah, it's well, and 100 proof.
Yeah.
So, I think bottled in bond. The other thing about bottled in bond is, that it's made 100% here.
Sure.
So where we have a blended series that we're blending with some stuff.
Oh, okay.
So it was important for us to know that, or it was important for us to have a bottled in bond product that people know is made 100% here.
Sure.
We started getting into blending this year because we want to push out into some other states, and we just don't have enough juice to do that.
Sure.
So we're getting into a little bit of the blending.
That's got to be exciting for you, huh?
It's great, and again, finding the juice that you want to blend with is another. It's a game. It's a total
it's a
game.
delicious game.
It's a fun game to play.
Yeah. So much R&D. It's awesome.
There's times where I gotta take a nap on the couch upstairs before I drive home.
That's awesome.
Did you move closer, or are you still?
I'm in Allentown.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, I'm in Allentown. So it's
Does that like pain your soul? I mean, how do you? That's a transition.
living from the country.
Yeah.
I've been downtown for man. I've been down here for a while, probably since the mid 2000s.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the place we started in, I did live out there for a little while, but I've lived in the city for a while. But I know I love the city. Had a good time down here. I have a son that's about to turn 3, and again, I love Allentown, but I don't really have any green space. So I'm starting to get the itch to kind of see possibly, looking towards maybe the country again.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Or, midway to the country.
Sure.
Exactly.
So this is a blended product. I think that, first of all, the first whiskey we've ever had on our show was the 1 Foot Cock, the
It
original.
was. It was the first
Was
ever.
that blended? That original recipe?
No, you've never had blended before.
So that expression doesn't exist anymore? The first one?
Well, the first one.
It was the original bourbon. It was this.
That would
right?
be our bottled. That expression is now bottled in bond.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't
Got
bottled
it.
in bond back then. It is now. It's the same. Yeah, I got you. I got what you're
It
saying.
would have
Yeah,
been
sure.
if it was 4 years.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
100%. Okay.
Yep. So this is
good. This is also really soft.
yeah.
So what's
It's
this
nice and
blended
sweet.
with?
MGP.
Okay.
Yeah, but weeded MGP. 6 year. So
The wheat makes complete sense.
yeah, yep. And the weeded MGP is really hard to find. You can get the rye stuff all day long. Getting stuff that has some age on it is tough. It's like they release it in these cycles. You don't see the weeded stuff come up as much.
I am totally getting green Jolly Rancher off of this. Like just right off that initial taste, that I felt like I had a Jolly Rancher in my mouth. Have you ever got that
kinda
before?
Put that, no, you've
Yeah.
kind of put that thought in my mind, though.
It's really good.
How come every product so far has just been like there's nothing happening super deep in your stomach. It's all such a high hug and it's super welcoming. It's like, yeah, it's a whiskey. Like, we got you. You're okay. We're not gonna like destroy you. And there's no warming in the chest. Like if it's super intense, it's just really, which we've always said. Generally, that's a testament to the distillation process because if something's missed, then it'll immediately hit your stomach and you're like, I'm gonna die. And you know, like something, what's wrong? You know. But whereas with this, it's just like such a nice welcome into it, where same thing, it just lingers in a really nice way, but it's all in your sinus cavity. It's nothing down low, and it's warming. Like it's a nice. I don't know. It's nice.
Yeah, it's a good everyday, good everyday whiskey. That term always makes me
Everyday sipper.
But yeah, it's, and we still play with the balance a little bit here and there. But
How hot is this?
that's 93.
Okay.
Yeah, 93.
So this is a heavy wheat mash, and that's kind of your homage to Weller that you like.
Correct.
Okay.
I love weeded.
This is very good.
I
Yeah.
love weeded options. They're so good.
Yeah, there's, like I said, again, it's hard. It's a little harder to come by, which will, I don't mind having these expressions that so I said we're looking at getting into some other states, and I think it would be kind of fun to like, okay, we get into a state, I know it's gonna sell. It's gonna catch people's eye. It's gonna sell, and then it's gonna be gone. And then I don't care if we have to, if it takes a while to find some more to blend, but I'm always gonna leave enough. I kind of have a balance in the rick house of what I'm willing to blend out of our bottled and bond stuff with the weeded Midwest grain stuff. So it's fun, and cracking those, even with I refer to them as the legacy distillers. Those guys know what they're doing,
Right.
I mean, I quite honestly, I used to kind of like, back when we first started, I'm like, I sort of shit on the idea, like, why would we ever do that? Why would we put somebody else's stuff in a bottle? But I think the bridge to that was, the compromise was, if we ever want to get out of our own market, we're going to have to do that.
Sure.
And B, these guys know what they're doing. And honestly, C is, as long as we're doing something to make it unique, you have to. I shouldn't say you have to, because there's a lot of places, there's a lot of big name brands that just they're we can name them off. There's a lot of them, and it's good juice. It's great juice. I mean, I think some people. I thought I read that MGP was older than Buffalo Trace, but I think that's kind of they've been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they know what they're doing. I mean, I've bought some of their white stuff. Like I've brought in, this is another thing I've done just to play around with. We're using Adirondack barrels, which you guys are
Good for
probably
you.
familiar with. They're the top of the ladder. They're the best. I say the best. I don't know. I like them a lot because you don't have to hydrate them.
Sure.
They come in. They're tight as a drum.
And it's New York, man.
and
Like
it's New York.
that's your brand is New York.
It's New York. And the guy that owns it's super cool, Joe. And their barrels look like artwork. They're just beautiful. And so I wanted to use some of his barrels with some MGP. So we brought in a tote of MGP.
Oh, cool.
And filled up some of his 53s. We bought them from him, but so I'm looking forward to seeing what that tastes like.
Sure.
Because he's pretty specific on his charring techniques. I should send you guys a video. I took a video. He had a machine built that bursts the barrels. When I say bursting, they're bursts into flames.
Sure.
But he knows what temperatures he wants to hit, because he literally has a laser that points in there that it's a thermal laser that he knows the temperature. He wants to cut it off, and then he blows in nitrogen that kills it. And
That's crazy.
it's a really, the dude's, you know,
That's so cool.
the dude is, yeah, he wants to be the best Cooper in the around.
We were talking to him a little bit ago to get him on the show, but we just haven't. We have with our work schedule, we haven't been able to go all the way out there for it. But we would love to have them on.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
Even if it's a Zoom to start,
Yeah.
we're down.
yeah, and the dude's
He's a pro.
He's a pro. He's doing really good too. Like they're building a whole new facility right now.
Well, because I mean, the word got out because there was a lot of cross pollination, and the world of whiskey's small. So if you're doing things right, you're gonna get known. And I think, I mean, it's to his credit, right? But it's kind of fascinating how that whole thing works, where he's just like, oh my god, like, yeah, we're the Adirondacks, but how many trees do we really have? You know, like.
Well, they also I think they're pulling in wood from the Ozarks too, and from I think Missouri. So a lot of the high quality woods, oaks, they want a real tight grain. But his thing that he's real proud of is he air dries the wood. He doesn't kiln dry. So just another thing that he does. But yeah, Joe's we got in with him early on. And I don't even know if he's, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I'm not sure how many new customers he's even taking on right now. We had to so this last order of barrels we got, we had to put in almost a year ahead of time.
Wow.
So I already have my 2024 order in. So it's.
We were actually having that conversation with another distillery because I was like, how do you forecast that? That's so complicated and it's so hard because you're just like, I guess I'll just add a 0. Like, I have no idea where I'm going to be in 2024. You know what I mean? Like, I know what my system can handle, but I don't, what if something booms and then I'm short barrels? Like, that's so stressful. I mean, credit to you because that's a lot of math.
So that being said, are you ever thinking about upgrading your still and your whole production system, or is that not right now?
Good question. That's a great question. The still, we're pretty happy with our stills. The thing that I would upgrade is the grain delivery system. And
So like no trucks?
no, so how we get the grain now is we bring it in and our corn comes in and we have like these totes, we'll call them, that our farmer takes. He puts the grain in. He mills it for us. We bring it back and then we shovel it into like this little elevator system that we have, which I'll show you guys. It's a little dusty, and once the corn is cracked, you gotta
get it in.
You gotta get it in. Yeah, you don't want it sitting around. There's just a lot of reasons why, right? So, what I would like to do is get a little. Like a bin system, like you'd see it like a silo. You see those little mini silos, like what a lot of the bigger guys have. Like if you went by Big Ditch or something or Resurgence, you see those silos. So I would bring the corn in whole kernel, whole grain, and then put a hammer mill on the bottom of the silo. And what you can do is you can get a silo that has, like we have a tank out here that has. Can measure the weight on the feet. So I know I can hit a button, I can program this silo to pump in 800 pounds or 1,000 pounds of corn, have it go through a hammer mill so it's freshly milled into the mash tank. So that's kind of like the 2 or 3 year plan. That would really make my distiller happy and make his life easy. It'd make our lives easier because we'd be getting less loads coming and going. The wheat probably would have another bin for wheat, but the malted barley, because it's only maybe 11% of the mash bill of bourbon, I would probably still just get that in 50-pound bags. That's what we're getting it in now, and we do mill the barley.
Oh, okay.
We have a little, because it's only it's a small amount. So we'll run that through our little mill, but we're not trying to mill corn right now because that's it's a lot more. But to your point, that part of it would be big because it would just make things more efficient. The other thing that I would probably invest in is a bigger chiller. In the summer, if you're trying to run if you're trying to crash the mash tank, and we're doing a strip run and a spirit run, we could do 3 processes all at once. It's hot out. It's bringing that chiller to its knees. So we actually, my cousin and business partner here, he's an HVAC guy. He installed a dry cooler, they call it. And so a dry cooler pulls the coldness out of the air when it's below, it'll work below 60 degrees. So in the winter, we can hammer our system. When it's cold out, we're running, strong.
Sure.
That's awesome. You're like, let's make the juice today.
Yeah. So we really try to pump the production out heavier in the winter, take advantage of the cold weather, take advantage of that cold air, and run it through, because you're actually using less energy when you're using a dry cooler. It's just a fan, where a chiller is using a compressor,
Right.
and it's using a lot more energy in the summer. So, but maybe someday when we that's the chiller's definitely on the wish list, because they're like $20,000. So
It's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
they're crazy.
So the blended straight bourbon was very good.
Yes,
I really like that apple Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, that's
came out of nowhere. That was nostalgic 1990s.
Yeah. Sometimes something just hits your tongue and you're like, I remember that.
Pause.
Dang. I'm like, I had never thought of it that way. I almost got to maybe I should try it again.
Now you should try it again. So are you planning on doing other blended products and having a larger blended line? Because again, going back to when we first came here, you had 1 or 2 products, I think, and now you're at 5. So
yeah, where's the crew neck?
Are you good? Yeah, right. Are you good with the staples that you have now?
How much time do you guys have?
Yeah, right. We're already at an hour or 2.
Dang.
Things fly when we talk. This happened last time, I think.
I know, doing good.
Yeah,
No, I gotcha.
hop in there.
I just-
You want a little more?
Okay, a little smidge, a smidge.
Now you need that Jolly Rancher note. Go for it.
Do you pick it up? It's gonna be on the next label.
I think maybe I do a little bit.
It's also that placebo that I put it in your mind now.
I get, it does. There is a little bit of sweetness. This one, I'm telling you, it's almost shooting towards Buffalo. I dare say Buffalo Trace a little bit.
Sure.
Buffalo Trace has that snap at the end of it, though. That's a little hard to get.
Sure.
You know what I mean by that snap? That little, just a little.
That hint of crisp.
Yeah. It's just the snap.
Thoughts? Jolly Rancher, got it?
It's not on the tongue. It's on the outskirts.
Oh, to me, it was right on the tip.
It kind of hit your cheeks for me. It's there. Like when you freshly open a new one, and then you throw it in your mouth for the first time.
Pause.
That's when you taste it.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I'm impressed with the fact that the puns been very subtle here, boys.
That's our entire life. We don't really know how to live without it.
No, not at all.
So here's the Irish.
Yeah, so talk to us about this one.
It's something we wanted to do. We have these products that are for Buffalo has a lot of drinking demographics, right? So we have the Krupnik for the Polish demographic, and obviously we're touching South Buffalo here, so we're like let's bring in some Irish whiskey, and it took a while to find the right people to work with us and find the right profile that we were looking for. And that's really all, I don't necessarily want to have other brands on my shelf here.
Sure.
But it'd be nice to have an Irish whiskey. And the only way you're going to have an Irish whiskey is if you're imported. If I'm making anything that is we can't call it Irish whiskey if it's made in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring it in from Ireland, you can't do anything to it other than cut it down.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had to find a place to work with us on finishing, find a place that wasn't crazy expensive. And we kind of have this relationship with this guy, Connor Hyde, from Hiberna, doing a good job. They're tried and true. And so we brought it in. We tried cutting it down to a bunch of different proofs. Settled on, what did we settle on? 86, I think. Yeah, 86. Just because typically, your Irish whiskeys are going to be around 80.
Sure.
Exactly.
So, and we wanted to have it, we found some port barrels. They port finished it for us. We brought it in. Our original plan before we dug into this was to finish it here, but that was
Kiboshed.
Okay, so that was the whole thing. Is you wanted to finish it here, but I gotcha.
We couldn't do that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that got put on. But we're pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
When you said you had an idea of what you wanted it to finish like, I believe I might have misheard that, but your intent of like what you wanted the product to be, what was that? Because that's a super interesting conversation. If I was a fly on the wall, it'd be like, oh, okay, like they want to do an Irish whiskey or any spirit in general. Like I have a vision for what I want this to either taste like, be aged for as long as, X, or like what was the thought process behind that with you and the rest of the team?
Well, it was trying other Irish whiskeys that were port finished, quite honestly.
Not a bad way to go about it.
The idea really came from a bourbon that I like that's port finished. You guys you've had Bowman's, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Bowman Brothers port is bomb.
It's
amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's so good.
And there's not a lot of Irish whiskeys. There are some, but there's not a lot that are port finished. So I'm like, well, again, it's like with our blended bourbon. What are we doing to make it our own? What are we doing to make it unique? There's not a lot of options, and still call it Irish whiskey, but throwing it in a port barrel and being able to pick those port barrels out. They're coming straight from Spain. And you can choose from your ruby ports. So we worked with these guys to get it over there, and they finished it for us. And I think I wanted it to be a little bit sweeter and a little bit hotter on the tongue. Hence
nailed
being
it.
86. So it's not Jameson, it's not Redbreast, but it's somewhere that I think is really good. I think it's a great, easy drinking Irish whiskey, and we wanted to have something that we could release during St. Paddy's Day.
So is this going to be an ongoing thing, do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if probably.
Are you worried about having a consistency with the port casks?
No.
No?
I honestly don't worry about that kind of stuff because I think that the uniqueness makes it special.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Man, you really embrace that whiskey's a religion, huh?
Yeah, I do. I don't. It doesn't. As long as it's good, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And again, we're craft. So as long as the basics are consistent, then I think you got your bases covered. So I don't think that if we do it again, the one thing I would probably do is maybe not go quite as long in a port barrel. I think that the port is pretty strong.
Yeah, it is. Very much so.
It's very I don't want to say it overpowers it, but it's stronger than I had anticipated. So
this kind of tastes to me more like like a bourbon finished in a port cask, just because it has that strong port note to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get people. How long did you put it in the cask for?
About 8 months.
8 months, yeah. So, I mean, I love that port note. Port is
It's
one of
good.
my favorite finishings in a whiskey,
And
it's so good.
I'm biased because I love cigars, therefore I love ports, but I also love port finished whiskeys with cigars. And to me, this would go great with a cigar.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drink this with a cigar. And you're
And if you want to get like real deep in the weeds, you can, surf through different types of cigars, different regions, and then how it's actually finished and made. And then you can actually exemplify different elements of the whiskey because the cigar can bring that out, which is amazing.
Did they just meet the 3 years in Ireland, or was it longer in Ireland?
So I think this was 4 years.
4 years? Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it looks pretty dark, too.
Oh, it's
This
super
was-
dark.
Yeah, this was 4 year, and then another, I think about 8 months in a
Okay.
port barrel.
Is it the Irish distillery's flagship Irish whiskey, or was it kind of like a special that they wanted to work with you on, or what was that process?
So I believe they called it Erie. It's funny. I think they call it Erie Gold, actually. So
Oh, yeah. Sick.
so it's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no
called
doubt.
Lake Erie.
Yeah.
I think it was their flagship because
Okay.
it's a single malt,
Okay.
which but we tried a bunch of different kinds, and that seemed to hit the note. So I know more about bourbon than I do Irish whiskey, but I know enough about Irish whiskey to be dangerous. And
Cheers.
again, it was just something that we wanted in the repertoire. We're thinking about actually doing a tequila too.
Oh, cool.
But the thing with tequila, from what I understand, is we can't like this. We can bottle here. We can cut down and bottle here and call it Irish whiskey. Tequila, if you bottle it in the U.S., you can't call it tequila. So it's got to be called like an agave spirit.
Right.
So, but we're still. I think we still might do it though. Just so I mean, what the hell? I'll bring in a tote of some good Blanco. Maybe age it out. Maybe age half of it, but just to have on the shelf.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun.
Call it Buffalo Agave or something like that.
Buff agave. Yeah,
Buff
something.
Agave. There you go. Love
But-
that.
Again, it's just at the very least, it's something that people can choose from when they come here. The liquor stores typically will take whatever we offer, and then having the bartenders having more tools to be able to work with craft cocktails is kind of cool too. So, so yeah.
It's sweet. I like the colors on it, too.
Me too.
Yeah, and the timing was kind of cool. Like we wanted to do an Irish whiskey. We wanted to, again, have something for St. Paddy's Day. But the other thing too is we had this dude Bob Yelvin who came in here. He was like one of our first regulars. That he's a Buffalo fireman. Total the guy had awesome stories, and this guy he loved smoking cigars out front and just hanging out.
People watch.
And he was just a good old boy. He was a good dude, loved people, loved talking to people, and we're like, and he's Irish heritage, so we're like, what, let's put this out for Bob, So it might be a one-off. Or we might do it again. I don't know, but this batch was for Bob.
Yeah.
That's cool.
To Pop's
That's cool. Yeah. Hell yeah.
So
Got to do a German whiskey now next or something for Hofbrauhaus or something like that.
Yeah.
No free shout-outs.
yeah, we'd like to pay homage to all the demographics
Sure.
in Buffalo. We want to be inclusive in that manner. So
Wow.
we just gotta keep. The longer we're around, the more we'll make time to put each one of these products on the shelf.
Yeah.
So we start with what we're good at. Honestly, the first thing we ever made before we ever made whiskey, we made apple brandy. That was the first thing we made.
Sure.
We were distilling hard cider, and then it was like a moonshine, and then bourbon, and then vodka, and we made gin, and I'd like to play around with some brandies, and see what that does, because there's a lot of guys making wine down in the southern tier along in Forestville. I think that would make an interesting, throw some of that in a used whiskey barrel.
Sure.
So, yeah, so it's all there, man.
I'm curious to see what you do for Italians.
Yeah, we don't have much. We got wine. That's it.
Well, food, but I mean, like half a flatbread. So, like, this is our take to help
Just throw a
out.
little flatbread in the barrel.
Just a little flatbread.
Aged with prosciutto.
I bottled this next to the kitchen. Does that help?
What can I make out of tomato sauce?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this leads us.
Should we try this one?
To the bottle and bond.
Oh, it's been a hot minute. It's been a hot minute since the original release of the 1 foot cock.
Mm-hmm. So it's unsheathing.
I gave it to my dad, the original bottle from the first episode. I said, "Here, Dad, drink this," and he's like, "Will it help?" No, Dad, it's not going to help. Not in the way you want it to. And he's like, "I'm still going to drink it." I'm like, "You're such a dad."
Yeah. We don't necessarily know if it doesn't help. So,
Well, so far.
We can't legally put it on the bottle, but it does help.
That's awesome.
so this is the original mash of what you had when we first tried it, but this is bottled in bond, aged a little bit longer, and
It is
it's got a
darker.
completely different label.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, what does this retail for in our area?
56.
Okay.
Yeah. 56. 100 proof. Probably touching on 5 years.
What are your thoughts?
I'm getting that.
I'm getting that corn.
I'm getting that corn, but I'm getting that. We've talked about this so much. You remember those ice cream things that you had when you were kids?
I was waiting.
Here we
for
go.
it.
Yeah.
I was waiting.
Yeah.
For this.
You've heard. So those little. Oh, okay. So the ice cream things that we had when we were kids, and the wooden spoons. When you start gnawing
The
on
small
it,
ice cream
yeah.
cup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have that little wooden spoon that breaks off because I have
You're
a ton
an
of problems.
animal.
I had ADHD and I was just chewing on everything. But that's what I get from a lot of whiskey is that like
The wooden spoon.
from an ice cream thing with maybe a little bit of chocolate left over.
He was hurt a lot as a child, so take everything he says with a grain of salt. Just don't put it in your process.
I trust me, man. When you put a product out, it's got to be open to interpretation by everybody.
Oh, so wooden spoon. You're gonna tell your cousin about the wooden spoon?
No, I mean, I don't know if I don't know if I would totally describe it that way, but it's got a soft wheatness to it.
It's buttery.
Again, that's how I would describe it, as buttery. But I understand like what you're saying about, we distill on the grains, so we don't lauter our stuff out, so you do get a lot of grain forward flavor. So, but it's buttery. There's some oak in there. Again, up to interpretation, but I think it's got a nice richness. It's got a nice richness to it.
You said your grain comes in, and basically all your shipments come in giant totes, for lack of better terms. When you open the lid and you smell the corn, that's in this. Like that freshness, and then not from a taste perspective, but from an experience perspective, you get that kind of like dry cornness to it, and then the buttery finish, which it doesn't coat your palate in an overpowering way. It's like intermittent tingles of it, and then it's super smooth. It's super smooth, and it's not that viscous. It's really not that viscous.
I must have eaten apples recently, either that or I'm having a stroke, but I'm getting a lot of, like, not a lot of apple in this one. The blended one I was, but this one I'm kind of getting like an Apple Jacks.
Yeah.
Again, I might have had like
Something's
apples on my
wrong.
mind lately, but that's just what I'm getting.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a little apple in there. Sure.
See? Not having, well, maybe I am still having a stroke.
You know,
Maybe I'm still having a stroke.
lanolin and cherub tears is how I like to describe it.
Oh, yeah?
So this one is special for you. You mentioned,
Well, they're all special.
of course. But this one's wax dipped.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well, we waxed up those, I think the first 100 of those. So this is the maple cask. We give our used bourbon barrels to maple syrup producers, and they'll age maple syrup for however long, not usually more than 6 months. And then they'll give the barrels. It's like kind of like the cask mates program that Jameson does. So they give the barrels back to us.
Sure.
And then we'll put our whiskey in there, and it pulls the maple out. You know, and they usually have them. There might be a little left in there. You know, try not to empty it completely out, just to give it. But the trick is also not hitting you over the head with maple.
Sure.
So that maybe you blend in a little of the unmaple cask in there, because I don't ever really want our products to be overly, well, other than the mafia sauce. The mafia sauce is a little sweet, but it's also acidic too, so you get that almost like punch. But I don't want any of the whiskeys to be overly sweet. Even our apple pie moonshine, which be coming out at the end of this week, which I should have. It's mixed up right now, but I should have had some ready for you guys. But I just don't want to like punch you in the face with sweetness.
So this is aged bourbon in a regular barrel, then finished in the maple cask, or it's all in the maple
Correct.
cask? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
It's already been aged.
Sure.
And then put in the maple cask for like another 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Aged how long initially?
Minimum of minimum of 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not putting out. I don't want to put out anything that's less than 4 at this
Sure.
point.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's honestly, I don't even want to put out stuff that's less than 5, really. And some of the blended products, you can probably get away with a little here and there, but minimum 4 years on a 53-gallon barrel, but 5 is better, 6 is better still.
Sure.
So
So just hypothesizing here, what do you think your ideal age for your product would be? Like, you've tried it at 3, you've tried it at 4, you've tried it at 5 at this point, right? Are you seeing the increase? Like 7 would be a good one, or are you going to tap it off at 5? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
I think I'll know at the 10-year mark.
Yeah,
Really.
10?
Yeah. I mean, I want to see what the 10-year mark does. Yeah. I mean, what's Eagle Rare 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to see what that bad boy does. Let's see what 10 years does.
Sure.
Okay.
I when my son was born, I had juice ready to go because I knew the time was coming. And the day he was born, my distiller, Kevin Ford, at the time, he barreled a barrel for us, a bourbon, the day he was born. And that's that one I'm going to sit on for. That's going to be the, what age can they start drinking at? 6,
Yeah, right.
17,
I mean,
17 year, 18.
yeah.
Start rubbing
I'm
it
just
on their
kidding.
gums when they're
Yeah.
teething,
But that baby, that's like in the repertoire. I think that's the cool, like,
Yeah.
and my son's name is Wilder, so it's Wilder's Reserve, so.
That's really cool.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot because you said it already. It's not overly overpowering maple.
Yeah.
And to me, it tastes just like a ton of wood sugars with a maple note bourbon. Like, it's not like this is secondary finish in a maple cask. This is a very good quality sweet maple bourbon to me.
I want this over ice cream.
This
I
is
want
very
this over waffles.
Yeah.
This is super good.
It's definitely good over waffles and ice cream. Yeah.
It's
That's good.
yeah.
It's really good in coffee.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah. Well,
What coffee?
I put maple syrup in my coffee every morning. That's what I use. I don't use sugar. I use maple
Oh, hell
syrup.
yeah. Let's go.
Sugar-free maple syrup or raw maple syrup?
Just maple syrup. Just-
Okay.
Yeah, just
Because there's sugar.
He's
there's
not a
sugar,
beta. He's not
well,
using
listen,
sugar-free
There's
maple syrup.
sugar-free maple syrup.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
Come
it
on
exists.
now.
No, it's for like fitness freaks.
That
It's a thing.
belongs in Whole Foods, son.
Wait a minute.
Correct.
Wait a minute. Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
they
That's real?
Yeah, it's real.
How do you even make that?
Remember we
Isn't
talked
maple
about things like
sugar?
not necessarily being reality. This is
Wowzers.
yeah. Well, they made
learned
peanut
something
butter a powder too.
Yeah.
It's PB2. You can put that in protein shakes. But yeah, sugar-free maple syrup does exist.
It's this is the raw stuff.
I'm gonna try that on like Sunday.
Dude, I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
What coffee do you drink?
Admittedly, we drink a lot of coffee pods around here, which I'm not proud of. I'm not. That stuff is terrible.
What about your home?
At home?
At home.
So I go to Blue Mountain Coffee on Elmwood,
Hell yeah.
and visit. Jeez, I forget her name.
She's a wonderful lady,
She's
nonetheless.
the best. She's so good. She's awesome. You know, I'll get the Sibley's, the private blend, but at home, grind that up, percolate it, put a little of that stuff in there, maybe just a touch of cream, you know, and oh yeah.
So, okay, so do I have to try it with cream or can I do maple syrup and black coffee?
However you like it, man.
I never had maple syrup though. I need
with
maple syrup and coffee. I never had
How do you normally take your coffee?
black. Sometimes I do black with honey.
Like a man. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody once tell me, you know, I was ordering a coffee, and they're like, it was a total setup. They're like, cream and sugar, and I'm like, yeah, I guess. And they're like, I asked you if you wanted coffee, not pudding. I'm like, fair enough.
Got him.
Yeah.
So the 80 proof, this was proof down to that. Is that when you thought the maple came out more? Like, or were you going to release it in 90, or was it always an 80 idea?
The maple?
Yeah.
That was actually, that coffee story was actually something that Maynard said on Joe Rogan, so I was kind of...
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the 80 proof...
He's a fan like us. Let's go.
Yeah. So the 80 proof maple cask, what was the question again?
If you...
Did you proof it down to
80, or if you would have released it at 90, like what was the tasting note difference between when you were proofing it down?
Proofing it down from barrel strength?
Yeah.
Or did you always want to go down to 80?
We wanted to go to 80 just because, honestly, you want... I think we just wanted it to be an easy drinking, you know, not bitey. This is more for people that want something a little bit sweeter. It's more of an introductory bourbon, right? So, you know, even clicking it up to 86 is a little bit... It gets a little hotter for people, right?
Sure.
So I think this is just a little more approachable. It's a good like whiskey to like, oh, you know, I'm thinking about getting into bourbon. You know, it's very approachable. So yeah, I think that was the thinking behind it that we had.
This is really good.
There's a famous whiskey brand that got discontinued, and one of their flavors was walnut toffee.
Oh boy.
They don't exist anymore.
It's fully discontinued?
Discontinued.
Sad.
And I'm getting text messages from family members, and they're like, this doesn't exist. Like, what do I get? So this, to me, would be fantastic for those individuals. So my question now is, how much of it do you have? Where can we get it? And how much is it?
So it's not out yet. It'll be out in September. I think we're gonna try to do 1,000 bottles.
Oh, so it's a bougie release.
I think somewhere between 600 and 1,000 bottles. I think it's going to be in the $50-some range.
So it's a perfect Christmas gift, is what you're saying.
It's an excellent Christmas gift.
I love that.
I can get
I
behind that.
mean, but it's a fall. It's coming out in September. It's autumnal. So this is the last label that has kind of this badge shape. We're getting in new labels this week that this will be updated to look like.
Oh, okay.
Now. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's
Nice.
going to have like a almost like an orange foil. So
What made you want to do that? Because honestly, that's not bad at all. I like that a lot.
I'm glad you say that. We did it because this label was actually designed for that shouldered bottle, that flat bottle. It sat on there really pretty. But we wanted something with a little more splash.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Inconsistency.
Yep. I mean, it does work on there. I will say there will be one label that we will keep in this badge shape, and that is we do a once in a while, and there's no rhyme or reason when we do it. We have one product that is a nod to the old Buffalo Distilling,
You were going there. Golden grain.
the golden grain,
Nice.
and that's barrel strength. And that has this badge shape, and it will always will, and that will always kind of keep, and so that'll be every once in a while we'll put out a batch of that.
We had, when that first dropped, we had that
Yeah.
the first time, and we're just like, dude,
Yeah.
this is good. This is good.
Yeah, cool.
But I mean, there's no lying that the new labels are awesome.
Oh, they are.
Like this works on this bottle, but it's going to look amazing with that updated label.
Thanks, man.
Fantastic.
Appreciate that.
Like, that's a very good design.
Yep, that's all Casey Kelly. I mean, I throw my 2 cents in here and there. But
Now Perez.
And Al Perez. There's Casey
Thank
Perez.
you. So you had the Croup Neck, and then we got vodka here too. Talk to us a little bit about the vodka, and then the mafia sauce, because what's that considered?
I mean, it's considered a flavored vodka.
Okay.
It's just a fun shooter. It's supposed to taste like Gatorade, basically.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's supposed to. It's serve it ice cold. It's designed for the sports team town, right? And what goes along with sports? Gatorade. So Gatorade is, if you were to put a pH meter in it, it's acidic, slightly acidic. So we mocked up this to be very similar in pH to Gatorade.
Who thought of that?
Kevin Ford. That was
Damn.
that was Kevin Ford's
That's
idea.
genius.
Yeah.
Who the hell takes
that?
Gatorade and puts it on a pH scale?
Yeah.
Good for him.
That was Kevy.
How do you add?
Hi, Kevy.
How do you add acid to that? Like, what's the process?
Citric.
Oh, okay, so you're just adding drops. of it?
So not acid. Okay, so
Well,
this
citric
is
acid.
And like not LSD or
right. Yeah. So this is not the 80s.
That would be a true mafia sauce. Then.
No, you just add citric acid is in everything.
Okay.
It's food grade. It's basically just dehydrated like citrus. Hence citric acid.
Sure. So does it come out like an orangey taste? I've honestly never had it.
The citric acid is more for a mouthfeel.
Okay.
It's more of like we call it liquid brightness. The flavor comes from actually we get Josh Allen's tears and we blend them in
Love
with
that.
the vodka and
If you want Matt Milano's sweat, let me know because I'm your guy.
Happy tears, right?
Yeah.
happy tears.
Yeah, not
It's
sad.
tears of joy.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers.
That's vodka there.
What proof is this?
80
proof.
proof. Nice and smooth.
It's not supposed to go down like water, but it went down like water. I don't really know how I feel about that. That's
Maybe I haven't
dangerous.
had vodka in a while, or the fact that we've tried a lot of 100 proofs today. But that was really smooth and very buttery as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to drink.
It's a gentle sweetness. It's not, there's no tart to it. You know, like it's
The 1 foot cock it's a gentle soul. It's just,
Yeah.
you know.
Speaking of 1 foot, it shouldn't be gentle. You know what I'm saying?
I know but you got to be gentle.
oh
be gentle.
no,
Oh no.
oh no. Have you made cocktails out of this? You must
all
have,
the time, all the time.
Like what's a cocktail?
Yeah. Speaking of that, can you talk about your cocktail program and kind of what you're doing with the front of the house?
Well, I'm not going to speak too much about the cocktail program. I would rather have the people that make the cocktails do that. But I will say that they make some of the best cocktails in the city, hands down. They do a great job at service and taking. So I'll get into this a little bit. These guys work with one brand. You know, we have different things within that brand. We have gin, we have different whiskeys, we have vodka, we have apple pie moonshine, Krupnik. So we have different flavor profiles to work with. But I think the true measure of a great craft cocktail artist is to be able to take anything and make a lot of different drinks out of it. And what it boils down to is, well, what are you working with? What are your shrubs?
Sure.
What are your syrups? You know, we make our own syrups.
Bitters and stuff like
Bitters.
that too. Yeah.
We make our bitters. And how many cocktails can you make with gin? You know, thousands. You know, and I don't need 600 different kinds. I'm not saying that bars that have hundreds of different kinds of brands are not, you know, poo-pooing that. But what I'm doing is accentuating the fact that you don't need that many different brands to make great cocktails.
Sure.
No, not at all.
And that's what these guys do, and that's why people come in here. That's why we have regulars that come in here. They, you know, I mean, dude, Dale makes this elderflower liqueur that, you know, it's our version of Saint Germain, you know, and it's awesome. You know, he makes this cucumber gin drink. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, again, you know, it's funny sometimes being a distiller and owning brands, and I go into a bar and I see hundreds of different brands on a shelf, and I'm like, how many of those do you just want it for the decoration?
Sure.
Which I get, which looks cool, and you know, you could. I think at that point though, when you have that many brands on a shelf, you should be trying them neat. Because
100%.
what is the point? And if you want to know what a true brand tastes like, why are you mixing it up?
Exactly.
Because I'm telling you, you're not going to taste that big of a difference.
Oh man, he's speaking our language.
Yeah, he's speaking our language. We're all about that. I mean,
We drink everything neat.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday whiskey review, anytime we go to, you know, no free shout outs, but like Lucky Day, it's neat. I'm not going there for a cocktail.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
You know?
But to your point, I mean, you have an abbreviated selection of what the bartenders and everyone can work with.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to become familiar with it too. I mean, if you ask somebody that goes to a cocktail bar, can you make me this drink with Weller? They're going to be like, one, you're dumb. Two, I have no idea how these flavors are going to pair with this cocktail that I make you, because nobody asks for it. Whereas with your stuff, you have a flavor profile here. You have the rye, you have the maple, you have the Irish, you have everything. And it just makes more sense that a cocktail program at a place like this would be more tailor fit for a lot of people.
Or you have the experience behind the bar where if I walk up and say I'm in the mood for a Manhattan, can I try your bourbon bottled and bond in a Manhattan? They'd be like, okay, I could. However, what if you're in the mood for a Manhattan, I can do A, B, and C. And, you know, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And that whole conversation is what really keeps people here.
Yeah, and that's what they're good at, and that's what they do. They really do. And so, you know, I nod my head to those guys. They do a good job, you know, because, again, the whole craft cocktail thing, you know, I swam in it. I had friends that are in it. I went to all the hot spots, and I get it. But on the same token, the craft cocktail scene actually, Prohibition cocktails were invented because the booze sucked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like turpentine. So, but again, they did a good job at turning something that maybe didn't taste good into something good. So,
Can someone come here and try something neat? Do you guys do single and double shots?
we do it all.
Okay.
We do it all. You can have it however you like it. We will not. If you want a gin and tonic, we're not going to turn our nose up at it. If you want something neat, if you want something fancy, you want dealer's choice. We got the people here that definitely would be happy if you asked them, what do you feel like making me? They get excited for that.
That's my favorite thing to do in a bar is just to be like, Dale, make me something, please.
It's
and
a
he's
line
like,
item.
I got you.
Yeah.
Some places have it as a line item where they're just like, give me a spirit. Do you want
Or
vodka,
flavor.
gin? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the first time I experienced that was on my honeymoon. And the place I was staying at was like, there's this line item too where we'll just make you something, just let us know. And I was like, make me something with scotch. Don't care.
Yeah.
And they're just like, sounds good. Be right back. And they made a cocktail out of scotch. It was amazing. Yeah. Obviously, it wasn't like a Macallan 49 or some obnoxious bougie option, but it was you could get the peat, and then they exemplified it. Yeah. So having that creativity option for bartenders, I mean, dude, everybody gets so sick of old fashions.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
So that being said, are you planning on a peated scotch collaboration with Buffalo
what's going
Distilling?
on?
Because if so, I'll give you money right now.
It's funny you asked that. Our maltster, Bob, has been really, really pushing us hard to do an American single malt. I think because he likes scotch.
Oh my gosh, so good.
It's definitely in the future. I don't know when, but I mean,
It's
having this conversation makes me want to do it. So for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll do it.
Sure.
But again, a single malt is going to be a little spendy. But the other thing too that I would want to dig into is like, all right, how much smoke do we want to put on this? What do we do to it? Do we? And it's like sort of getting out of my comfort zone a little bit, which is fun and cool. But yeah. But the answer is we will do it.
Love that.
Again,
That's awesome.
Bob's been pushing us.
Yeah, we'll have to have Bob on for sure.
I know.
Because
I really
he
want
sounds
to.
like a really good time.
He's got a voice for radio. Too.
Oh, okay, cool.
You guys do too, for sure. Definitely have the but when you talk to him, he sounds like somebody that's on NPR or something. He's like really.
You have a very calming voice, though. Don't sell yourself short.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's funny when you hear your own voice.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh God.
I will say one of the things that I've always loved about Buffalo Distilling in general is just the atmosphere that you guys create here. Up front, if you're having a cocktail, it feels like you're in someone's basement, just like hanging out with friends. Because the bands that you bring in here and like the music, you can talk about that program too if you want, but like they're not, or at least not that I've seen, like DJs and like party club it up. You have like acoustic sets here that I feel like fits this vibe so much better. And you can sit here with a cocktail and actually enjoy the music instead of like our age where we're kind of like not at that DJ scene anymore. And we're just kind of like, I just want to go and listen to music and drink some good cocktails.
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to you guys because you literally created a black hole and it's dangerous because you're just not going to want to stop drinking and then you're not going to want to go home and we don't have that luxury of going upstairs for a quick nap on the couch.
Well, I mean, you guys probably, I'd give you the key. But yeah, no, I mean, it's, man, we just try to make it cozy and warm and inviting and, we get the plants in here,
And they're real, by the way, people. The plants are real.
Yeah,
They are real.
They're pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. We chip away at stuff every year. We pick something. So, in little shout out to Nickel City Metalworks. He's going to be doing a project for us on the patio.
Nice.
Dude, I've been following on Instagram, and we want to sexy up the patio this year. So I talked to him last week. Actually, we're going to do a cool patio project and put some more fire pits out there. little light canopy, obviously some plants. We're going to do a mural. My mom's going to do a mural. She's an artist.
Oh, sick.
She's going to do a mural on the side for us. So it's just, it's about just being cozy. You know, in the summer, obviously people want to be outside. So that patio, you know, is going to be nice and cozy out there with the fire pits. And, you know, and in the summer or in the winter, it's cold. Make it cozy inside.
Sure.
So, you know, and you always got the heat, literally, I'm not kidding, from the stills when we leave this middle door open, the heat's coming back here from the stills because, you know, we're running them at, you know, there's a 500-gallon mash that's at 200 degrees. That's, you know, it's like a furnace in there. That's so, yeah, we want to keep it cozy and chill and keep the kind of, we have a good clientele, people that you can come in and talk to, and everybody is, you know, there's not a lot of egos flying around in here. It's just good folks. So
Love that. So Maple Cask is coming out September. Where can people follow you to figure out when it actually releases? What's the social media handles?
yeah, so at Buffalo_Distilling for Instagram, and then Facebook is just Buffalo Distilling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, man. We took a lot of your time. And I think the last time, too, Buffalo Distilling was our longest one, and now this just topped that one. So
I know.
You're very consistent here. I love it.
All right.
But really, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Go try all their products because, I mean, their products, they have a wide range of everything. Come down to their tasting room, have a cocktail, and just enjoy the experience of being in the 1 Foot Cock. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, man.